Welcome back to Let's Get Personal with me, Chris DaVeiga. It's a podcast where we talk to business owners and other leaders to get to know their journey. So let's get started.
All right. Well, I'm happy to be joining Chris DaVeiga here we're doing an offsite today at LFG Fitness. And I've been here. This is a great place. I'm so excited to be joined by Chris. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, I'm going to dive right in. And, part of the podcast here is really to understand people's journeys. And I've had the pleasure of knowing you for a little while. And why don't you tell us, what we'll do in the backdrop here is maybe do a little, some pictures and videos of your gym that you've built out here, which is amazing. It's an amazing facility.
Thank you.
Anybody in north of Boston, southern New Hampshire really should come check this out because we were just saying it doesn't do it justice to drive by it. And you've built this out entirely yourself.
Yes. Yep.
And when you come inside, as you'll see in some of the pictures we put out, it's just remarkable, state of the art, everything's top notch. But how do you even before you get to this masterpiece, how do you even get into the fitness industry?
It was by accident. I was fat, out of shape, and I was a regular athlete, football, basketball, baseball, and once I graduated from UMass Boston, sports was over, and I blew up to 300 plus pounds. And I'd go to, the Planet Fitnesses and the Gold's gyms, and it was just boring.
So
and then
you took the freshman 15 to
it was a freshman 50. Yeah, it was bad. So then I was working at a real estate appraisal company in South Boston, and this gym, Peter Welch's gym in South Boston, opened up across the street. And I saw the owner, and he kept telling me, he's like, you got to come in for a free class. Come in for what I do today now to people. I'm like, come in.
Right.
He did that to me. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot. And I gave it a shot. And then, I lost, in my first year, 80 pounds, got addicted to the sport, was in there twice a day, 6 days a week, 7 days a week. I lost a girlfriend because I was at the gym too much and she didn't want to be there. Like it was, better off now, but.
Well, there's worse things to be addicted to.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yep.
So was that your first foray into the boxing world?
Yeah. So I was 21 years old. 44 now. So I got into it late. So I had a martial arts background growing up. Went to the Junior Olympics in '96, competed in that, but I never wanted to fight or box past that. Right. And then I just started getting the bug, and then I started getting in the ring with all the guys, and the guy was expanding at the time, and he was looking for trainers. He basically told me like, you started late. Why don't you go this way and I'll teach you how to be a trainer versus starting to fight at 20 years old. And, for what are you, do you want to go pro? Do you want to do this? And every fighter, and I have the same belief, is every fighter fights because they have to, or, that they were, born into the sport. People, you don't hear people go, I kind of want to try it, or, it's like, oh, I want to do this.
Right.
If anybody comes in here and they're, fitness versus fighting, it's very different. Like fitness wise, you can come in, have fun, spar here and there, whatever. But if you're like getting ready for a competition, it's every day of the week, twice a day, it's no joke. It's the reason why ESPN put it as number one as the hardest sport out of all the sports.
That's right.
To get prepared for it.
I grew up wrestling, and, different but similar in the conditioning and what you have to put in for a very short period of time. Boxing's even, a lot more rounds than wrestling was, but also by far the hardest sport I've ever participated in was wrestling. And, obviously having a little foray into the boxing world through you, and it's not even the sparring and hitting, just the training component of it is, a lot more stamina than you would think until you get into the ring. Right. And, people like yourself make it look a lot easier than it seems until you're trying to put combinations together, do it in the right timing. Yep. The best fighters, as you've explained to me, just they flow around the rink seamlessly, but there's a lot more to it.
Oh yeah.
Behind the scenes.
It's crazy to see the progression when somebody starts to, when they're, a professional fighter, 40 fights in or whatever, like the difference between day one, day two. The cool thing about boxing is everybody starts at the same, not knowing anything.
Right.
So, everybody comes in not knowing anything. Of course, you have your, athletes that are amazing athletes and they pick it up faster than others. And, some people are stronger, some people, their timing, like you have your Mayweathers, your Canelos, people like that. But boxing is it's the toughest sport I've ever attempted. And, it's something that you can't take lightly if you want to go into it, amateur wise or professional wise. So, that's why, I went down the fitness route, because my mind wasn't to compete,
Right. Well, the thing I love about this gym, and it's kind of where two worlds collide, right? We're talking about some serious boxers and what they need to do to train to get ready for a fight. But then you're also talking about how it overlaps just into how you can incorporate into your everyday fitness.
Right.
And there's so many variations between the high roxes, the CrossFits, the, Orange Theory and all, F45. I feel like this is a great meld of a lot of those components.
Right.
And, as somebody that's worked out, on and off my entire life, you're always looking for how do you stay motivated? And I love the way, you deal with some people that are serious in training, and you deal with the people that just want to make that an additional component of their fitness regime.
Right.
And, that's a great aspect to it. But talk to the person driving by that sees, boxing and gym and somebody that might be a little bit kind of overwhelmed by approaching a boxing gym. What do you tell them to come in and why? So
I basically, the cool thing is 90% of this gym is everyday people like us,
right.
Lawyers, construction workers, doctors. We have a great community here. My mom, she's 75 years old. She takes classes. She works out here, right? So we have from young kids all the way up, and that's the majority of the gym. The small percentage that compete, that's the fun part, and that, gives us legitimacy, right? But the 90% of people that come here, the everyday people, those that's who we're talking to.
Right.
And those are the people that we want in here. And the thing is that our classes, strength wise, conditioning wise, boxing wise, it's for every level. So I call it dud to stud, right? So you could, cause I always tell people, just go at your own pace. If you need to take a break, nobody's going to yell at you.
Right.
It's a 50-minute class. All of the classes are 50 minutes to an hour. If you got to go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom. Nobody's going to, be like, where are you going?
Right.
Once I get to know you, I might mess with you a little bit. But yeah. Other than that,
that's how you're part of the family.
Exactly. I always say, if I'm not messing with you, I don't love you. So
right.
Yeah.
But it's having worked out here myself many times with you, that you can do some personal training with you. Right. You can come in for some class work, or you can kind of come in and work out on your own.
Correct. Yep. And the classes is our bread and butter, and that's where the majority gravitate towards, because obviously personal training, it's an extra cost and,
right.
Just different level of training. But most people will come and start with, a class pack or whatever, figure out the classes, and then they join into a member, turn it into a membership. And the cool thing is like, we don't do any contracts. Like for me, I don't want to be a Planet Fitness charging $10 a month, hoping you don't come. I want you to be here. The place feels better when it's filled. And when the classes are full, that's the energy, and you vibe off of each other.
Right.
So it's like we're working out next to each other. It's like, Chris, let's go. We push each other. Yep. Positive.
It has a lot of that feel of a CrossFit or a High Rocks, where that community, where people are in it together. Right. Whereas you can go to a Planet Fitness and there could be 100 people in there and not talk to one of them.
No.
You're kind of invested in each other's goals a little bit more, because the community, to your point.
Oh yeah. Yep. And you see where people you go to classes with somebody for 6 months, you get to know them, you see them losing, you look great, 20 pounds down, this, that, whatever. It's great,
Yeah. And one of the parts I love about, just fitness in general too, is when you're losing weight or getting in shape and it's fun.
Yeah.
Who wants to go on the treadmill? Who wants to, some of these things are just, we've done them a million times. And then when you come in here, there's a different level of self-worth, confidence that you have when you're also learning like a skill,
yep.
When you're getting around, learning some combinations, and that's the boxing side of it. But, you clock off a half hour, and you don't even realize it.
No, we do more in 30 minutes than people do in 2 hours at a gym.
Right.
It's like it's all time management. It's all go. To get you to that point, because, 30 minutes of boxing will crush, any workout,
right.
and like as far as like CrossFit at 45, any of that. You know, I have a saying, me personally, if you see me on the treadmill, I'm warming up. I don't run anymore.
Right.
You know, I do sprints here and there, but you know, boxing is so much better on the joints. You know, it's for every age. It's the most fun to do, the most rewarding.
So obviously you've gotten to the pinnacle, right? You've been able to open your own establishment, but take me back to the 300-pound guy that's struggling to find his way, break into it. You know, how did you break down that last barrier to get to the point where you're consistently committing to that goal, which is so many people's big obstacle, right? How do you, once you get hooked as you were, it kind of takes off on its own. But what advice do you give to that person to break down that last wall like you did?
So it's a lot of self-discipline and motivation, but it's the coaches that helped me and, you know, and the community of the gym that always, you know, like partner on a bag, and somebody would come over and be like, I'll be your partner. You know, like they wanted you to be there. It was very like team oriented and I was always one of those guys that would go to the gym or the YMCA and work out by myself or with a buddy, and you don't do much, more talking than working out. And,
right.
You know, here it's all work, motivation. So it's like my coaches and I call it my team is what I showed up for. And then eventually it was just, I wanted it. And then I didn't want to miss any days. And like, I felt if I missed a day, I would miss something. Right. I got addicted to learning the sport. So it was like, you know, it was just something that I wanted to be there as much as possible. You know,
it's funny because we both played sports in high school and after, but the point that you make about wanting to be there for your coaches, right? That likens you back to when you're on a football team, right? You're coaching, your wrestling team, whatever. You work extra hard for that coach. Yeah. And that might be that missing element that you had that this fulfilled, where it's kind of almost like that team sport mentality.
Exactly. Like I would always be hitting the bag and I'm like, I wonder if he's watching me. Am I doing it right?
Right.
You know, like you're always in your head, and, you know, anytime, and it's full circle because I'll walk over to somebody and just to say like, oh, you're doing a good job. And they're like, what am I doing wrong? Right. It's like right in their head. They like think I'm just staring at them to point out the negatives. I'm like, no, I came over to tell you you're doing a great job. Yeah, keep going.
Right.
You know?
Well, you tend to push a little bit harder when you have somebody that you're working for, which, you know, you don't get at your home gym. You don't get at a Planet Fitness. Right. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the community element that you have here that's hard to replicate.
Yes. Yeah.
But so tell me, so you kind of hit all age groups here. Mm-hmm. What can the younger demographic expect when they come here?
So younger as like children or so
children, teenagers. Yeah.
So we have a kids class. We have a couple different things that we do. So like fitness wise, we have kids classes during the week from 4 to 5 p.m. and it's half lifting, strength and conditioning, and half boxing in a group atmosphere, you know, anywhere from, 15 to 30 people max kids. We split the kids up, younger kids with younger, older with older, and there's a coach with everybody. So there's, if there's 30 kids, we have 3 or 4 coaches on the floor, making sure that they're, doing the right technique, that they're not getting hurt. That's more controlled. For the older kids, like say like 15, 16, 17, they have a little bit more freedom. They come later at night. They come at like 6 o'clock to 8, and they train with all the fighters. Now, fighters all train together. I train the pros with the amateurs. Everybody trains together. It doesn't matter who you are. Wow. So you could be on a bag next to, the number 2 person in the world, have no idea who he is or whatever, but, you're standing next to somebody that does this for a job, right? Versus you're just trying to lose 20 pounds. But the kids come in, they work out with all these guys, and like that gives them somebody to look up to. It's just different for like the younger ones versus the older kids.
And where are you drawing most of your clientele from? Are they from immediately surrounding areas? They come from a distance? So we got connected with a company that does a lot of homeschooling. So we have a large population of homeschooled children that come here, and the state of New Hampshire actually pays a portion of their membership. Wow. So it's pretty cool. So like instead of them going to gym, they come here. Right. And then the surrounding areas like Salem High, the Boys and Girls Club, we have a great relationship with,
the CEO Marco over at the Boys and Girls Club, good friend of mine. He's amazing. He sends me kids. We have police officers that bring kids in here. We try to, and then we obviously go down the route of kids that, run into trouble. Like myself, I ran down the wrong road when I was younger. If it wasn't for my parents and my friends and family, who knows where I'd be today. Right. But, we also have that aspect of trying to help kids that, never played sports and couldn't find their way, right. Didn't have a role model, didn't have a father in the house, right. So it's like we cater to everybody.
Right. Listen to you say that. When I grew up, there was a lot of like Kung Fu and karate and all the, because a lot of the kids that were getting bullied at that time, they kind of funneled off into that. And it's great because this place brings in, again, so many different elements. But for those kids that are, struggling with self-confidence or not finding their click at school or that purpose, I feel like anybody, mm-hmm. kid or adult, there's always a brighter side on the opposite side of hard work. Mm-hmm. And when you couple that with boxing, which, you're learning how to protect yourself a little bit, and that's important.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I think to your earlier point, helping some of these younger generations that are probably on their phones a little bit too much, aren't socialized.
The kids are different. The kids are different.
Yeah. Have you seen a difference in the last 20 years?
I just, I hate to say it, but it's, these kids are soft.
Yeah.
And it's, I always ask permission to the parents because I tell all these parents that come in here, kids' classes are coming in soon. And I tell every parent that comes in here, I talk to your kid like I talk to my kid. Right. Right. So the way I talk to my son, I'm going to talk to your kid. Hope you're okay with it. So I always give them a heads up because I'm not, I'm a nice guy. Yeah. But, I don't take any crap from, a child, especially the way I was raised. If I spoke out of line, it was a wrap. Betty was taking me into the fitting room,
But, that's part of the respect that I think all, mixed martial arts, boxing, all have in common, right? Respect the gym, respect for one another. Right. And, that's just a great element to add on top of fitness. And I think that's, it's a great thing to instill in these kids that may not be as prevalent as it was when you and I were younger. Right.
Like I always say to these kids when they come in, I always tell them, this is for fitness purposes only at first. And obviously you're learning a craft, how to defend yourself. But I always teach them, like, you don't start a fight. It's always, you have these tools that we teach you to protect yourself from somebody that's disrespecting you. Right. So if somebody crosses that line, that's when you have the green light. Like I'll never get mad at one of my kids for finishing a fight. Starting a fight, that's a different story. Right. But that's just me.
Right. Yeah. No, but it's a different world than we grew up in, for sure. And, I think this is a great place to kind of give kids and adults a little bit more sense of purpose, a little bit more belief in themselves, right. Confidence that maybe you don't have to engage in fight because you get nothing to prove because you already know what your self-worth is.
True fighters and people that know how to fight don't want to fight.
Yeah.
Because there's so many instances that you see, like the big muscle guy at the bar talking trash. Oh, you fight? Oh, you box? Oh, yeah, you a tough guy? And you see the other guy going, man, I just did 10 rounds earlier, bro. I don't want to do this right now. Yeah. And in a nightclub, hurt their hands, whatever it is. But, most people that do this don't know how to do this at all.
So my uncle and my nephew's here. He probably has heard the story a million times. Yeah. He was into karate for, whatever degree, black belt, competed. And I'll never forget, we were away on a family vacation. It's kind of one of those family stories that was larger than life, but I was there. So I knew it because I saw it. And, sometimes these stories grow, but to your point, anyway, it's the confidence that he had. We were probably, a fight erupted. We were in a place that we weren't familiar with, maybe 8 family members on my family and maybe 30 other people. Mm-hmm. And a kid took a bat out of his car and my uncle said, bring the bat in the most calm way, confident way I've never seen in my life. And the kid put the bat back because of the way he just answered that, responded to him getting the bat. Yeah. A fight happened and he didn't throw a punch. We were literally surrounded by people. And, I was 20 at the time. raised a little bit differently than he was, didn't have any of the skill he had, obviously. And he just walked around the outside looking at everybody in the face and waiting for someone to step off. Mm-hmm. And didn't attack anything, didn't initiate it, but was waiting. And, we walked out of there and they were looking to start something. Nobody stepped into his line. Mm-hmm. One guy out of the 8 amongst 30, just walking, waiting for someone to step off. And I remember going back and saying, what were you doing? Mm-hmm. He goes, I could look in their eye and know if they were going to do something, if they had it in them to do it.
Yep.
And I could size it up. And to your point, didn't have to do anything, didn't throw a punch that day, but the confidence he exuded, I'd never seen in person in those ratios ever since. Yeah. But just to know that you have that in yourself and to carry yourself like that, right. I mean, the way it exudes into your personal relationships, mm-hmm. into your business, into, is amazing.
Right. Yeah. It's such a, it's having that in the back of your head. Like there's nothing for you to prove.
Right.
There's no, you're with your girl, you're walking down the street, somebody says something, she knows what you can do.
Right.
There's no need for, us to take our jackets off in the middle of Newberry Street or,
right.
Whatever it is,
right.
But it goes to that.
I want to switch gears a little bit. We talked about the fitness, but entrepreneur to entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. I know how hard it is running my own law firm for, over 20 years now to succeed and not succeed in the business. Mm-hmm. I know the risks that are involved. You opened up a very big establishment here. Mm-hmm. Everything is state of the art. You invested a lot of money in this. How do you get to the point where you're, because so many people talk about, one day I'm going to open up that restaurant I want. I'm going to open that bar I want. I'm going to go out on my own and hang a shingle. How do you get the balls, pardon my French, how do you get the chutzpah to be able to say, I'm going to actually do it where most people don't?
So I always found myself working for somebody that I was better than or like just being in a situation that I knew the answers and they wouldn't take my answers. And, when I worked for a previous company and, not to be named, I bumped heads with the manager. The owner was amazing. George Foreman III, great guy. But they were getting to a point that they were so big that they had, general managers and head trainers and all this. And, I just knew I was better than everybody. So, my classes were the most packed. My book of revenue for personal training was the highest. I was always top earner. So it just got to a point that once I just didn't get along with management, George looked at me and was like, and this is George Foreman Sr.'s son. He looked at me and was like, it's time for you to go on your own. Like, let's start doing this. And I wanted to go back to what you said, like, don't tell anybody your dreams. Like, don't, because people were, shitting on me. And,
so fair.
It's like people like, how are you going to do that? How are you going to do this? So like I would tell a couple people that, I'm looking to do this, I'm looking to open that and go here and go there. And, I got a lot of negative, which was shocking to me. Like these are my coworkers, my peers. And, I think they just got a little jealous or whatever.
It shines a light on what everybody else is unwilling to do.
Right. So, George told me to keep my mouth shut, go get the money. So I found people that believed in my story and believed in me. And then, I had my group of investors. We came up to Salem, New Hampshire, looked for spots. And then, we found this place and we started building. And then, we announced it a month before COVID. Like we signed the lease a month before COVID.
Right.
So 2020. And it was very, we're still digging out of that hole.
As in person as you get.
Yeah.
This business.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So it's like doing virtuals in here just to keep the lights on and whatever, like those times, it seems like a lifetime ago, but it was, once like I'm a fight or flight guy, right? Once you're in it, you're in it. Like there's no going back the other way. Like once you're 10 miles down the road, you already cashed the checks. The checks are cashed. Right. So what are you going to do? You're going to fight or you're going to run, So
but you also get a taste of, I think, as somebody that's similarly situated to you, once you get a taste of starting to see your dreams a little bit more, seeing your vision come to fruition, it's kind of hard to put the genie back in the bottle and go back.
Right. 100%. Yeah.
But you have to have that passion
Oh yeah.
Because it also is a lot of sleepless nights. It's a lot of, how are we going to pay these things? How are we going to pay the staff? And everything's not rosy.
No, people don't understand, and you get this, but the insurance, the payroll, the electric, this, that, whatever. Everybody sees all the people in the parking lot, the cars, this, that, whatever.
The beautiful facility.
The beautiful facility, and they like, oh, you must be doing amazing. That's the crazy thing. That's why I don't, flaunt around, houses or cars or anything like that, because people always think, oh, he's balling, he's killing it. It's like, no, man.
The years you struggled through COVID.
Right.
What position that puts you in coming out the other end of this.
Exactly. They didn't see any of that. They didn't see, they see us on this side and thriving and doing better and, moving in the right direction finally after all this time. But they, everybody has their own perception of what you're doing. It's like, oh, I know how Chris is doing. He's doing good. But they don't know if you are or you're not.
No, and it's a weird thing, right? Because I have a lot of good friends, talented, that have done very well in the business world and, very high level business people. And there's still something very different, I think, personally, about building something your own from scratch.
Right.
And being able to just look back at, and something sometimes I will say, which you might be guilty of this as well, is when you're in this world of, because you always feel like you're starting from zero every year, right? Because nothing's guaranteed. You don't get a guaranteed salary, and you start from zero. So I always feel like I'm starting from nothing. And so you have that mentality, which I think you kind of have to have as an entrepreneur. But at the same point, it keeps you hungry. But it also leads you to those times where you have the little blips, you have the COVIDs, you have the, the cyclical nature of the economy when people aren't spending the disposable money. You got to make it through those months.
Yeah. I always say it every month. Like when I sign the checks, rent check, payroll, this, that, I go, we made it another month. Let's see what happens next month. I always do it every month. Every time I pay all the bills, I'm like, all right, what do we got left? All right, that's that. All right, let's see if we're here tomorrow.
Right.
So because you never know.
But let me ask you this simple question, right? Let's say, we're all in this, to do better and grow. But it's something I always tell myself, if you could just stay at what you're doing now for the rest of your life doing this, right? Forget about you're going to double it, triple it, or forget about
I'm good.
You're going to go down to 50% of where you are now. Yeah. If you can just maintain where you are for the rest of your life, you okay with that?
I'm good.
Right? I mean, because at one point I wanted like 5 of these, but the thing is that the people that invested in me, right?
I can't duplicate myself.
Right.
So I always say the easy part is finding the location, getting all the equipment. But if I was a shitty trainer, nobody's going to walk through the door.
Right.
If our staff wasn't, reputable, if our staff wasn't knowledgeable, people, reviews are everywhere. So they're gonna talk. They're gonna say, "Oh, that place is nothing. It's not good." So it goes to your reputation and just growing onto that side of it.
Right. So shifting gears a little bit, one of the things that I also love about how invested you are in the community, and not only the community inside your establishment, but outside. Talk to me about Champions of Change, how it started, what it does.
So Champions of Change, we're over a year now. So basically, we had these gyms come in here so a lot of boxing gyms are closing down, unfortunately.
Right.
So we had a bunch of kids come in and, I was friends with the coaches and they were like, hey, can we work out some type of deal? Like my kids are, they can't afford, our price point here is $149 a month, right? For an unlimited membership. And these kids are coming from, they can't afford $20 a month.
Right.
So we made a price point that was fair for everybody, for all the coaches, for all the kids, but there was still a percentage of kids that couldn't come or couldn't afford it, and we try to take in as many as we could, but you can only do so much, especially like you got to pay, the bills.
Right.
So I said, like, why don't we try to, create some type of nonprofit that will fund the kids' memberships, their equipment, up to a year or whatever the case is, because how kids start something, they never finish it.
Right.
So we went down that route. We got our 501c. did all the paperwork, which was crazy. And then I just started hitting the street asking for checks for money. And, the best thing to do is, especially having a boxing gym, is setting up a fight night. So that's our, March 21st is our second annual. We did one last June. And we raised enough money to, pass out 7 scholarships,
Wow.
So that took care of the kids and this is fitness wise. It's not just, fighting. You don't have to fight. It could be either or. Right. As long as you meet the criteria of, you keep your family background and, your father doesn't own, 10 companies and
some type of hardship.
Yes, exactly. Some type of hardship that, you can, that we can help the kids that, want to be here, but they can't be here.
Right.
Because so many kids, there was a couple kids that we had to turn away that I was like, that kid could be good. Right. How many of those kids are out there?
I mean, we'll get into it after, I want to talk to you a little bit more about Fight Night, but right. I mean, you think about some of the best fighters, they didn't come from they didn't have a silver spoon in their mouth, right? You come with a little bit of edge on you, something to prove, maybe something missing in your life. And that's who's attracted sometimes to it. And that's who's kind of excels, get a little edge on them. But, and that's great if they can find their way in here and you can help mold them and craft them to a good young man. But, talk to me about Fight Night. I'm happy, we're going to be attending this year. Yes. Really looking forward to it. What does that look like? And how does someone get involved?
So it's going to be on March 21st. Doors open at 5. First fight is at 6. We have 20 fights. Wow. And this is everywhere from age 10 all the way to 40 years old. So we have heavyweights, lightweights, middleweights, all shapes and sizes, female, male. I wanted to make sure that the card was very broad as far as like the melting pot goes. I didn't want all, ripped studs. Like I wanted everybody. I wanted kids, teenagers, adults, masters. So I just wanted to this night is to show people what boxing is on all levels. Right. Not everybody's going to be a pro. Some people are just doing this for the sport. Right. And it's going to be, it's going to be a great night. And then, all the local businesses like yourself, thank you so much for, being part of it.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
So it's, all the businesses are helping us put the show on as well as raising awareness and raising funds for these kids. So it's like the fight night plus, grants or whatever we find for the kids and issuing their scholarships for here or for whatever they want to do is the main goal.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Well, it's great that you host that and can bring people into this community because I think it really, the time that I've spent here is life-changing. And I think it really can be for a lot of people that just haven't experienced it yet. Right. You talked about, in a time where other boxing gyms are closing. Right. Right. And you're thriving over here. How do you read where boxing is these days?
As far as?
Just, so when you and I grew up, I mean, my father boxed. Grew up in Harlem. I grew up watching, the police department box, the fire department. Yeah. We used to go to fights. I saw Pernell Whitaker back in the day, Cesar Chavez. Yeah. I met Hector Macha Camacho when I was younger in Puerto Rico, just happened to see him. I used to love boxing, was really dialed in. Yeah. Obviously, we grew up in a time where you had great fighters like Tyson and Holyfield and it's endless, but it's definitely changed.
Oh yeah. It's more political now. Yeah. People don't want to fight each other. Like, so here at this gym, we have, his name's Rashidi Ellis. He's just got ranked number 2 in the world. Wow. Nobody wants to fight the kid.
What weight class?
He's middleweight.
Wow.
Nobody wants to fight the kid. Like he was number 9, like last year, started climbing. He's talking trash on camera. Nobody wants to take him. But now he's number 2.
They don't want the risk?
The risk versus reward at where he's at, he's so good at what he does that if he runs into, a top contender and somebody didn't know who Rashidi was and he destroys them, which he would, it's going to ruin their climb. Right. So it's a lot of times their managers and their coaches are protecting them and saying, you don't want to fight that kid. You don't want to fight that kid. Instead of...
There's an obsession with records.
Yes.
Everyone's got to have an undefeated record. Yep. Who am I thinking of? Mickey Ward. Yeah. Honestly, whatever you think about boxing, the guy was involved with Arturo Gatti in 3 of the best fights I've ever seen in my life.
Yep. He fought anybody.
Right. And but he also put everything into it. It was a great spectacle to watch.
Yeah.
And, I could care less about, he was a great fighter to begin with, old style, right? Stay in the middle and just exchange blows. But people, they are obsessed with knockouts and with undefeated records to climb that ladder, to your point.
Yeah. And that's why Canelo is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
He doesn't care about the O. They told him not to fight Mayweather back then.
Right.
And, was it a little early, premature? Maybe. But he was like, no way, I'm fighting the best. I have an opportunity to fight the best. I'm going to fight the best. And he ended up being one of the best pound for pound that ever was.
Amazing.
Nobody cares about his record.
Right.
And then it's just everybody's so obsessed with, money. Obviously, I get it. They have to make money. But the losing aspect of it, it's just nobody wants to fight each other. The top people, everybody wants to see the top fight the top. Nobody wants to see
the middle.
Right. Nobody wants to see friggin' Tyson fight, me. Nobody wants to see that.
Right.
They want to see top contenders go at it to see who's the best.
Right. And we'll end on this, and it's an interesting one, but boxing has turned into Jake Paul's the face in some ways. Right.
Yeah.
And, I think everybody that's a boxing purist had mixed views initially. But you mentioned something early on, and where you've had people that show up to one of these fight nights or organized events, and they come in and, they see the crowd at a small venue.
Right.
And it's so intimidating.
Right.
And then here you get a guy that's willing to put it on the line, go in front of maybe the biggest pay-per-view audience in the world.
Yeah.
And fight some of the best fighters, right? He just fought Anthony Joshua.
Yeah.
And, I think I also have a newfound appreciation, even just training with you in the gym, about what he's putting into that himself.
Right.
And I think overall it's been good for the sport. There's so many more eyes on it.
Oh yeah.
And
at first I was very skeptical.
Yeah.
And he won me over because I know what it takes to get in this ring.
Right.
And I know the work he had to put in, and he doesn't need the money.
Right.
He just did it for the love of the sport, and what he's been doing for the sport, I have to, tip my hat off to him because, he's doing amazing things for the sport.
Well, you think about, to your point, right? Nobody's shining a light, where he also will promote those undercards that are all fighting on when they have the biggest eyes on for his fight. He's got some big women's fights,
yes,
and all these undercards that are really drawing attention to really great athletes. And it's kind of crazy that it's coming from Jake Paul.
Yeah.
But at the same point,
what he's done for women's boxing is amazing.
Amazing. Yeah.
Finally getting them into the millions, and they're starting to make some money because there's some bad ladies out there.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's
some, Clarissa Shields, and
really impressive.
We have a couple in this gym that are, some tough cookies.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to step in the ring with one of them.
Yeah, no, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But it's amazing, but it's really interesting how he's transitioned, especially this younger demographic, put more eyes back on the boxing world. That, hopefully it sticks, to your point, because, I think we're in this kind of weird space, and at its core, it really is a great sport when you watch the strategy behind it, and there's no place to hide, right?
No.
You and I know from wrestling, from boxing, it's you against you, and a lot of it's internal.
Oh yeah.
Pushing you past your limits, and you can't hide behind another teammate. And, hopefully, it's great that he's done a lot to bring the sport back.
Yeah. There's no blow the whistle.
Yeah.
None of that.
Yeah.
No.
Well, thank you so much. This has been amazing.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you for hosting.
Thank you for having us, and appreciate DiBella Law for, being one of our sponsors.
Yeah. My pleasure.
Thank you so much for your, donation.
So if somebody's interested, they want to join the gym, they want to start a private training session with you, how do they find you? Where do they go?
We can go to lfgfitnessnh.com or Instagram. Same thing. LFG Fitness NH is on all social media platforms. You can DM us, or you can call the front desk. Everything's on our website, phone numbers, emails, so they can contact me for more information.
And if somebody, I encourage anybody, and I don't want to say this and maybe it's not accurate, but if you're driving by and you're very welcoming, just come pop in here.
Yep.
Even if you're not looking to take a class in the moment, you just want to see what it's like in here, come pop in, see what it looks like, meet Chris, meet some of the staff, and I think you're going to love it. But I think, get inside.
Yeah, it's a vibe.
Yeah.
It's a vibe.
It really is a cool environment. You've done a great job here.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
All right.
Yeah.